So we have Angola. Angola has almost 10 bonds, accessed, Eurobonds accessed in the London Stock Exchange. Benin has 4 bonds. Cameroon has 2 bonds. Gabon has 2 bonds. Ghana has 25 bonds. Can you imagine? Ghana has accessed 25 Eurobonds in the London Stock Exchange that are active. That means active meaning that they will be repaid. We all know the situation of Ghana and the kind of struggles they have gone through in the past few years, but I think now they are settling back in. It will make more sense for me to see why they have been able to access all this money. But as well, Ghana is one of the economies in Africa that definitely it is doing well despite the challenges that it has faced, and it is one of the most progressive economies we have in Africa. And as such, progressive economies tend to have need for capital. When there is a potential for growth, there is a potential also for that growth to demand capital. It makes all the sense why people will go to stock exchanges to get finances. So Ghana has accessed 25 euro bonds. Ivory Coast has accessed 4. Kenya has accessed 13 bonds, euro bonds, and 2 equities. And I'll explain to you those 2 equities, which companies those are. Just stick with me. Liberia has accessed 1 equity. Equity is for companies. Mauritius, 2 equities and 3 bonds. Morocco, 2 equities and 16 bonds. So already you can see Ghana and Morocco have accessed more bonds than even Kenya. Nigeria, of course, Nigeria always leads in almost everything. So equity, they have accessed 4 equities and 33 bonds. You can imagine. And I think in Nigeria, in Africa, is the leading client to the London Stock Exchange when it comes to bonds. Yeah. Then we have Rwanda has accessed 2 bonds. Senegal has accessed 2 bonds. Seychelles has accessed 1. South Africa has accessed 4 equities and 5 bonds. Sudan has accessed 1 bond. Togo has accessed 4 bonds. Zambia has accessed 2 equities and 4 bonds. And the last one is Zimbabwe, which has accessed 2 equities. So if you've heard, those are the only countries in Africa in the moment that have accessed facilities in the London Stock Exchange, guys. So you can see it is not only Kenya. Those countries that you see have equities. That's a good sign. It is a good sign because equities are majorly for companies. And that shows that for a company to see the need to pump money directly from the London Stock Exchange, it means they have seen a certain level of growth, they have seen a potential of growth, they have seen opportunities that they can take advantage of. And as such, you can clearly see the progress of a nation by the amount of equities that their local companies are able to access. Because investors won't give you money if you're not as convincing as possible when it comes to equity matters. So we have countries that have accessed equity like Kenya, we have Liberia, we have Mauritius, we have Morocco, we have Nigeria, we have South Africa, we have Zambia and Zimbabwe. That is a good sign, guys. So let me give you just a slight understanding in Kenya. Which companies are these that have accessed equity in the London Stock Exchange? So number 1, we have Akon Project 2. Limited Liability Partnership. So you've heard this was issued in London Stock Exchange during President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure. And then we have Kakuzi Limited. Kakuzi was able to access equity through market capitalization of around 18.13 million euros. And then we have Neo Energy Metals PLC, which was able to access, of course, equity. 2 companies accessed equity and Akon Project accessed a bond. That is just a preview of what Kenya as a country profile it has in the London Stock Exchange. And now, guys, let's now go deeper into what happened or what the recent amount of money that the Kenyan government accessed. So recently, in the midst of all the appreciation of the Kenya shillings against the dollar, people attributed that change to the Eurobond. And I'll say partly it has an effect. It had an effect partly into what happened, but it is not the main cause of what happened. Because even as at that particular time, the money had not come. So how will we say that the Eurobond had an impact on that directly when even that money already did not come? Exchange rates are affected by liquidity, guys. It's about the money supply situation. It's about the money supply and, of course, forex reserves. So if the reserves have not yet hit our account, how can we then attribute all that change? The Eurobond. But I'll tell you this, the Eurobonds, the information, the news about the Eurobond definitely had an impact. For those people who don't know, let me give you a slight profile into how much money the Kenyan government has accessed through the Eurobond. In 2014, the Kenyan government accessed 2,000 million USD, that is to be repaid 24th June of this year. In May 2019, the Kenyan government also accessed 900 million USD to be repaid on 22nd May 2027. So you can clearly see that towards the end of tenure of William Ruto's governance, he will still have 900 million to repay. There is also 1,000 million USD that was accessed in 2018 to be repaid in 2028. A year later, after the 900, there is 1,000 to be repaid. On 22nd May 2032, 1,200 million USD will need to be repaid, which was accessed in 2019. And then on 23rd January 2034, there will be another 1,000 million USD to be repaid. That was another Eurobond. And then finally, we have on the 28th of February 2048, another 1,000 million USD Eurobonds to be repaid. All these were accessed in the period of 2014, 2018, 2019, and 2021. It was all during President Uhuru Kenyatta's tenure. And I think this Eurobond contributes significantly to why Kenyans said that Uhuru borrowed too much. Because when you look at the bilateral and the multilateral loans that he borrowed, they are pretty much almost the same as the other, in terms of percentage-wise, it is the same as what the other presidents have been doing. It is not anywhere significant. But Uhuru Kenyatta was the first president who really accessed money through the Euro markets. He really went in hard, and you can see 2014, 2018, 2019, 2021, totaling up to around 7,100 million USD. And of course, this money, the 2,000 that was due in 24th June 2024, is supposed to be paid. And this was the biggest challenge. Where was that money going to come from? And that is why now that dilemma of not knowing where that money is going to come from, because 2,000 million USD, guys, is a lot of money. It's almost to the tune of around 300 and something billion. 300 and something billion is a very huge percentage, even in the money that is coming in through taxes. Where will the Kenyan government have gotten that money to repay? If they were to repay that, then clearly the government will struggle to carry on its obligations, and it had to be creative to find some other ways. Considering this kind of commercial debts, IMF and multilateral agencies might not be able to give you this kind of money. And that is why the Kenyan government could not have gone to multilateral agencies to ask for money to repay that. I am assuming that. They could not have gone there because that is not the purpose of why multilateral agencies provide loans. And then they will not have also gone to taxes, because once you push, they have tried to get some taxes from people, but you can clearly see if they were to push people further within this short period of time to generate this 300 billion, then can you imagine what will happen? If Kenyans are already complaining right now, what will happen to that? That is why they wouldn't have done that. So the only option they had is to further go and find a way through the London Stock Exchange to come up with a creative way in which they can deal with that. That is why they had to go to 1,500 million USD, a new issue. So they issued this on the 16th of February 2024, during the same period of time that the Kenya shillings was, of course, facing troubles. And that is one of the things that contributed to the Kenya shillings appreciate. And this amount of money will be repaid. We are going to access a loan at 9.75% to repay another loan that was 6.875% in interest. It is not a very smart move. It is not a very smart move. But sometimes when you are in a corner, what do you do? I don't blame the present government, because the present government is not the one that borrowed, even though the arguments can be put out there but the current president was still the deputy president then. Now, that is politics, which I will not want to get into. But what is important to note is that this current government, of course, is facing an obligation to perform something that was, of course, accessed through with the previous regime. I don't know where the previous regime took this money. I don't know where this money was used to develop the country, because this is a lot of money which, if it was well utilized, then it will not be an issue actually in repay. But clearly the reason we are struggling to repay it in the first place is because whatever was accessed through the Eurobond didn't do what it was supposed to do. Having said that, this same government, therefore, the 1,500 million USD also now is an obligation to the next president who will come after this administration to repay. So what are the details? What are the small details about this new Euro? It is 1,500 million USD in amount. The interest rates is 9.75% and it is due in February 2031. The amount will be repaid in chunks of 500 million USD. First one will be on February 2029, 500 million USD. Then February 2030, 500 million USD. Then 2031, 500 million USD. The payments will be made in US dollars without deduction or an account of any taxes imposed on that. Do you know that whenever you are earning an interest income, the government has the obligation to hold, they withhold taxes. There's an amount they withhold for taxes. But in this case, you can clearly see that the government is paying out interest, which is clearly as per the laws of Kenya, it's an income. That means the Kenyan government needs to withhold tax. But it is very clear in this contract that the Kenyan government is not allowed to withhold any amount on those interests. Clearly, the Kenyan law is not applying anywhere. You can clearly see that is why it is not a local loan. It is not a Kenyan loan. It is a euro bond. It is denominated in the currency from which you're going to access that money. And the Kenyan government, of course, if it was another loan, they will gain out of that the taxes on those interest repayments. But in this case, they will not. The notes have been admitted on the London Stock Exchange main market. That means it will be traded. You will see the bond being traded, and people can buy and sell those notes whenever they seem fit, depending on how it is performing, of course. And its performance, of course, is based on how actively the Kenyan government is repaying and how the Kenyan government is improving, giving investors a clear indication that the country is headed in the right direction. Now, something very interesting to note, which we are going to delve deeper, is that on that contract I have seen investors have been warned. They have been warned in capital letters that investment in this country is high risk. So can you imagine you want to put your money somewhere and you're told this is a high risk investment? And there are so many reasons which have been put there to show that Kenya is a high risk investment destination in terms of the Eurobond. So any investor who is putting their money there, they need to put their money knowing that this is a high risk. Now, do you want to know the details of why these investors thought Kenya is a high risk investment? Then stick with me on the next episode. I will explain. I'm still going to explain in detail what that means. Before you even get access to some of these finances, like any other lending, you have to have a credit rating. So the credit rating of Kenya is rated as a B, and it is rated by a company called Fitch, Hong Kong Limited, and by S&P Global Rating. So these are two credit rating institutions that are very well understood, known. They are used internationally to rate countries, bonds, borrowers. They have rated Kenya as a B. You also want to know what being rated as a B means? Stick with me on the next episode. I will explain. And then these notes will be offered and sold and registered in denominations of 200,000 USD. So 200,000 USD, quickly, that is slightly over 20 million in Kenya shillings. So in short, for you to buy, the minimum that you can be able to access, if you are an investor, the minimum money you can put on this investment is a minimum of around 20 million and above. So if you don't have 20 million, you cannot invest in this. That's why these are huge investments that are done by big investments. And of course, the custodian, like I told you, the custodian is the Citibank. Now, guys, that is just a high-level summary of what these Eurobonds are. It's a high-level summary, and now in the next episode, I am now going to take you deeper into understanding why has Kenya been considered a high-risk destination for the investors, and why will investors still put their money in a country which has been considered high-risk. And the other reason is, why is Kenya considered a B rating when it comes to credit rating? What does that mean? And also, we'll go deeper into seeing the profile. What profile has been used to describe Kenya definitely as an investment destination by the authorities in the London Stock Exchange. That was my time today, guys. I hope I have educated you. I hope you've learned something. And my only ask is that you click on that subscription button so that you can come back again and watch the next episode, where I am going now even deeper into reviewing the document that was used to give Kenya the kind of money that the Kenyan government, of course, was going for. This is premium content, guys. I told you, do yourself a favor and subscribe to this channel. I will always be here to educate you and to impart knowledge in you that you can use it in your day-to-day life.